You are sitting in your car in a parking lot. The engine is off. The radio is off. You have been sitting there for 11 minutes. And you know this because you have watched the clock go from 6:47 to 6:58, and you have not moved. Something happened today. Something that cracked you open in a way you were not prepared for. Maybe it was something someone said. Maybe it was the weight of something you've been carrying for weeks, finally pressing too hard against your chest. Maybe you don't even have a name for it yet. Just this pressure, sitting right behind your sternum that won't quite release. But in 4 minutes, you're going to walk through that front door. And when someone asks you how your day was, you are going to say fine. You are going to make yourself a glass of water, maybe laugh at something on your phone, and you are going to carry that cracked place inside you so quietly that no one will have any idea it's there. And the strange part, you are not doing this because you're hiding. You're doing it because this is just who you are. There is a specific kind of woman who carries her pain like a private language no one else was ever taught to read. She is not cold. She is not closed off. She is, in many cases, the warmest person in the room. The one who notices when someone else is struggling, who asks the right questions, who makes the people she loves feel genuinely held. She gives her attention freely. What she does not give is her pain. When something is wrong, she gets quiet in a way that looks like calm. She answers texts with "I'm good," or "just tired," or if pressed, "I'm fine, just a lot going on." She uses busy as a container for everything she cannot say. She schedules more. She cleans when she's devastated. She takes on an extra task at work during the weeks when she is barely holding herself together. Because if she keeps moving, she doesn't have to feel the full weight of what she's carrying. When people ask if something is wrong, she reassures them. Quickly, she doesn't want to be a burden. She doesn't want to make the room heavier. So she offers a smaller, easier version of what's happening. "I'm just tired. I'm just stressed. It's nothing." And she means it to be kind. She cries alone, in bathrooms, in cars with the engine off, watching the clock, late at night when the house is quiet and no one needs her, and there is finally room to feel something without being witnessed. And the cruelest part of it is this. She does it so well that people believe her. They look at her and see someone who has it together. And that means the moments when she most needs someone to reach back are the exact moments she makes herself invisible. If you have ever sat in a parking lot watching the clock, give this video a like, not for the algorithm, but because I want you to know how many women are in that parking lot with you right now. Here is what I want you to understand. This is not about being strong. You know what strong feels like. This is something different. This is a pattern that runs deeper than character. And once you understand it, you will finally understand why it is so hard to stop. What you're doing has a name. Psychologists call it emotional suppression, the habitual process of identifying an emotion and then consciously or unconsciously blocking its outward expression. Emotional suppression is not the same as being private or introverted. It is an active psychological process, one that has real, measurable costs inside the body. James Gross, a psychologist at Stanford University who has spent decades studying how people regulate their emotions, found that people who regularly suppress their emotional expression don't actually feel less. The internal emotional experience remains just as intense. What changes is only what gets shown, which means that when you sit in that parking lot and pull yourself together before walking inside, the pain is still there. You have not resolved it. You have rerouted it. Gross's research also found something that matters deeply here. Emotional suppression takes effort. Significant cognitive effort. It activates the body's stress response. Over time, chronic suppressors show higher levels of cortisol, the stress hormone. They also report lower feelings of closeness in their relationships. Not because they are less loved, but because the parts of themselves they never share quietly widen the distance between them and the people they love most. This is the hidden architecture of what you're doing. You are working every single day to hold something in, and the work is invisible, so no one credits you for it, and no one sees the cost of it, and that invisibility becomes its own kind of loneliness. Your nervous system is not built to carry things alone indefinitely, but somewhere along the way, you learned that it had to. And this is the part that matters most, because the reason you learned to carry it alone is not a character flaw. It is a very specific story, and I want to take you back to where it started. Think back to a version of you that was much younger, before the parking lots, before the I'm fine, before any of this was automatic. There was a version of you who hadn't yet learned that her pain was a problem. Maybe you grew up in a house where emotions were managed, where things were not discussed so much as survived, where the adults in your life had their own pain that filled every available room, and there was simply no space left for yours. So you learned, the way children learn everything, by watching. You learned that your sadness made the people you loved uncomfortable, that your crying made things harder, that your needs were a weight on people who were already struggling to carry their own. So you got smaller. Not in a dramatic moment of decision. Children don't make those kinds of decisions. You just quietly, gradually learn to need less, to feel less visibly, to keep the difficult parts of your experience on the inside, where they couldn't inconvenience anyone. Maybe someone in your life was ill, or overwhelmed, or absent in the quiet way people are absent when they're physically present, but emotionally somewhere else. Maybe your household required a kind of performance of okayness, a collective agreement that things were fine, that no one was struggling, that everything was being handled. And you participated in that agreement, because participating was how you were safe and loved and useful. Maybe it was smaller than that. Maybe you simply learned, through 100 small moments, that the people around you didn't quite know what to do when you showed them your pain, their discomfort when you cried, the change in the room when you were sad, the way things got easier when you smiled and said you were fine. And you were perceptive. You have always been perceptive. So you read those signals and you adapted. By the time you were old enough to call it a pattern, it had already become invisible to you. It wasn't a choice anymore. It was just how you moved through the world. But here is the part I want to be honest with you about. Because you deserve the full picture, not just the part that feels gentle. There is a cost to carrying it alone. And I think, on some level, you already know this. The cost is that the people who love you don't fully know you. Not the you who sits in parking lots. Not the you who is holding something enormous and making it look like nothing. They know the version of you that shows up composed, capable, steady. And she is real, but she is not all of you. And the gap between who they see and what you're actually carrying, that gap becomes a kind of loneliness that is very hard to name. Because you created it, and you maintain it, and it was never what you wanted. The cost is also that you never learn whether you are safe enough to be seen, because you never let anyone try. And here is what I need you to hear. You were not wrong to build what you built. That little girl who learned to keep her pain private was not making a mistake. She was reading her environment with extraordinary accuracy and doing the most intelligent thing available to her. She was adapting. She was making herself manageable. She was protecting the people she loved from additional weight. And she was protecting herself from the risk of needing something and not receiving it. That is not weakness. That is a kind of brilliance under pressure that most people never even see. The woman you became, the one who holds things quietly, who shows up steady, who keeps moving when the ground is shifting beneath her. She is capable of things most people cannot imagine. That capacity is real. It cost you something real to build it. The work now is not to undo her. It is simply to let her know that the emergency is over, that there are people who can hold what she's carrying. That being seen in her pain is not the same as being broken by it. You were never too much. You were just in rooms that didn't have enough space. Drop an 8 in the comments if this is the first time someone has put words to something you've been feeling for a long time. I want to leave you with one question, not to answer in a complicated way, just a moment to notice. When was the first time you remember deciding that your pain was better kept private? Not a dramatic moment necessarily. Maybe just a quiet one. Maybe just a feeling. How old were you? What was happening? What did you do with what you were feeling? And did anyone ever know? Leave it in the comments if you want to. Even just the age. Even just a single word. You don't have to explain the whole thing. I just want you to know that whatever you put there, you won't be putting it alone. If this stayed with you, our next video goes even deeper. The psychology of women who were never told they were enough, and what that does to the way a woman sees herself for the rest of her life. Watch it next.